read the scripture where Paul ends up on Mars Hill. Well, where I'm at right now is very similar to that. There's all kinds of people that come here for various reasons, and these boats are usually with retired people from all over the United States. And then you have the Jehovah's Witnesses will be here with their stands. The Mormons and the Muslims walk through the park. I've seen actually Muslims praying in the park. And some people would say, well, that's kind of out of love. That's kind of harsh, isn't it? Well, you can't preach a different gospel and think that you're going to get away with it. Yeah, with a sign like this, there's a lot of people that are just simply too afraid to engage. And they don't know enough to engage. Quite often I'm confronted by young teenage girls. Last week I had a girl about, I don't know, probably 17, 18. And man, as soon as I got out of my vehicle, she started yelling at me. She says, "You can't tell me who I can love." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And of course she was talking about the sign in my truck that says God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. I said, "Okay, so explain to me, what are you about?" Well, she says, "I love my girlfriend," and of course they were, sitting on a blanket in the park, and of course I got them all upset. And I said, I can say I love my truck or I love my mother, but they're not the same thing. And if you have a romantic relationship with somebody of the same sex, you have a problem. You need to get saved. You need to be delivered from that deception. And it could be a demonic problem. And quite often, that's the way it manifests. People that are in that part of society, they just sometimes go absolutely nuts, screaming. And of course, there's other religious spirits, the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, and they all react a little bit different when you confront them. The Jehovah's Witnesses normally don't want to debate because they can't hold ground with their deception. They got a different Bible, which is so easily to poke holes in. And the Mormons, they're very deceptive. They use all the same language that we use, about Jesus. But everything has different definitions. And if you don't know that going in, you can spend a lot of time talking to them and think that you're agreeing, when in reality, they're thinking something totally different than you are. You have to start doing a little probing. I'm reminded of a guy who was a medic in the military, and he said oftentimes people would come in that had been close to some kind of explosion or something, and they had fragments of metal that were in their body. He says you could see a little tiny hole, but you didn't know how big the particle was that was inside of them. So they'd stick a stainless steel rod in the hole and begin to probe around. And then when they touched that piece of metal, he says they would hit the roof. And that's kind of what you're dealing with when you're dealing with the cults. You have to do a little bit of probing. Now, quite often, people respond to our signs with some kind of political statement. Now, we don't address politics much. I mean, we try to stay away from that. But just a few minutes ago, some guy went by, and his reaction to my sign was, "Trump is in hell." I said, well, not yet. So they just don't know what to say, so they react to whatever they see in the news or whatever. If you can't blame it on Trump, you blame it on the Jews. It's always Israel's fault, right? Now, that's not to say all Jews are perfect, because they're not by a long shot. I mean, considering the Jews this year are going to hold a big pride festival here in a few weeks down in near the Dead Sea, not too far from where Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. And if you think they're going to get a blessing out of that, that's going to be a big surprise.